Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Asad Yaqub from Lahore, Pakistan, and I'm teaching you IELTS listening. This is listening section 3 now, and before that I made 2 videos on listening section 1 and 2, and you must watch those videos. We are trying to crack listening, and in listening the most difficult type of questions, that is multiple choice. So once again I dedicate this video to my students who requested me to make videos on multiple choice, and we're going to make video on the multiple choice in IELTS listening. So we've got questions 21 onwards, and they are multiple choice 21 and 22. Then after that we've got questions from 23 to 25, and that is table completion. There is a table and you got to complete that table. After that we've got questions 26 to 30. They are flowchart completion type of questions and no more than 1 word. Now some of you asked me to make videos on no more than 1 word as well, so this is the video on no more than 1 word. Let's take a start. I wish you all the best. See ya. Okay, now let's continue with section 3, questions 21 to 30 and questions 21 and 22. So these 2 questions are basically multiple choice. Question number 21. Simon's main problem is that. Now main problem, we've got to see what is Simon's main problem. A, disagrees with some of the sources. Disagrees with sources. B, can't find some sources. And C, doesn't know what sources to read. So disagrees, can't find, and doesn't know. Let's go on. Next we've got question number 22. Which author has Simon found most useful? He might talk about all the authors, but actually most useful, that's the clue word. So which author? Is it Whitaker, Johnson, or Bradman? He will talk about all, but you got to see most useful. Then we have questions 23 to 25. Complete the table below. Write no more than 3 words and or a number for each answer. History of scientific method. Here we've got era, location, details. Era is 1600s BC. Egypt, Babylon, that is location, Babylon, and details, use of examination, dash, treatment. Right, use of examination, then another word is dash, and then another word is treatment and prognosis. So we got to see anything that comes along with examination, treatment and prognosis. Then 5th century BC, ancient Greece. Okay, and what are the details? Widespread, although many still believed in the power of something, and remember this preposition will help you. Power of dash. Plato was influential. Next, Middle Ages, before. Now see here they are talking about 1600 BC, 5th century. So Middle Ages before, it means it's going to be a sort of a century or so. Location is Muslim world, and then there is no questions, you don't need to read ahead. After that, questions 26 to 30. Complete the flow chart below. Write no more than 1 word. Now no more than 1 word, here it comes. So 1 word means just 1 word. Don't even write a, an, or the, even they will be counted as word as well. So don't write any article like that for each answer. Steps in the scientific method. Now what are the steps? Identify the dash. It can be identify the problem, identify the situation, identify something, and 1 word only. Form a hypothesis, create an experiment. You got to go on with the audio. Perform an experiment, and then 27 dash the data. It is something about the data, right? So you got to see what it is. After that we've got question number 28. Is our data dash or the experiment flawed? Is our data, it can be good or bad or whatever, or the experiment flawed? And if it is, then 29, yes, dash the experiment. It can be redo the experiment, try the experiment, do the experiment, something like that. After that, after 29, if the data is there, directly you can come down, dash the results. Now it can be verify the results, check the results, and all that stuff. So these are the questions. Now I play the audio and you got to find all these answers there.
Now turn to Section 3. Section 3. You'll hear a tutor and a student talking about the history of the scientific method. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25. Hello, Simon. Come in. Take a seat. Now, I wanted to talk to you about your assignment.
Yes, the one on the scientific method.
That's right. I just wanted to see how you were getting on.
Well, I think it's fine. I mean, I haven't done a huge amount of work on it because I've been working on other things. But what I've read so far seems fine.
How many of the references that I gave you have you managed to get hold of?
Not too many, I'm afraid. It seems that everyone else is working on the same things at the same time. And every time I look, the books are checked out from the library.
Right. Well, I think that we can go over the main ground together now. That way, even if you don't manage to go through all the references in detail, you'll still have an overview. What has helped you most so far?
I've managed to have a look at 3 of them. I thought that Johnson made some good points, but it was hard to follow the line of her argument. Bradman was simple and straightforward, and I felt as if I got a lot out of that. I wish I could say the same for Whittaker. To be honest, I didn't get very far with that.
Okay, that's more or less what I'd expect. So tell me, what have you learned so far about the role of the Egyptians and the Babylonians?
Yes. Well, there's evidence that the basic components of the scientific method, examination, diagnosis, treatment, and prognosis, were being used in the early 1600s BC, especially in the treatment of certain illness.
Good. Yes, that's right. And the point, of course, is that that represented a considerable advance over relatively simple, non-empirical approaches, which usually attributed anything unknown to the actions of the gods, etc. Of course, the Egyptians and Babylonians did this as well, but what we see emerging here is a willingness to base opinion on systematic study of the real world, which is at the root of the scientific method.
I see. Right, yes. And then that reappears later.
Yes, although don't get carried away with the idea that it was a simple process of development. By the time we get to ancient Greece, let's take the period towards the middle of the 5th century BC, the rules governing the scientific method were practiced on a widespread scale, but there were still many people who believed that real truth could only be acquired by pure rational thought. Plato, of course, had a great influence on the development of the scientific method during this period.
Through his academy.
That's right. But then, as we know, a great deal of understanding of the scientific method disappeared as the old world order collapsed. It wasn't until the Middle Ages, sometime before the 11th century, that several versions of the scientific method emerged from the medieval Muslim world, all of which stressed the importance of experimentation in science.
Right. I think I've got the historical timeline.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
The other thing I'm struggling with slightly is actually pinning down precisely what we mean by the scientific method. I wonder if you could give me some pointers on that.
Sure. Well, it's best to think of the scientific method as a series of steps in a process which allows us to find answers to questions about the world around us. So the first step is to identify the problem. What is it that you want to know or explain?
And then I think the next step is designing an experiment.
But you can't design an experiment unless you know what you want your experiment to tell you.
Oh, yes. You need to form a hypothesis to be tested before you design the experiment.
So there's a very clear relationship between hypothesis and experiment. Having designed the experiment, then of course you go on to carry out the experiment. The particular procedure you follow, the protocol, will differ from experiment to experiment, but the underlying principle is the same. You analyze the data from the experiment in order to confirm or disprove your hypothesis.
Assuming the experiment is accurate.
Oh yes, if there's anything unusual about the data, or if the results are at all surprising, then you need to ask yourself whether the experiment could be flawed and whether the data could be unreliable. If the answer is yes, then it may be necessary to modify the experiment and go through the process again.
So once you have reliable, valid results,
Then the final step is to communicate them. The wider scientific community needs to know about the results, and publication in journals is the accepted way.
okay, I think I've got the basics.
It's going to get more complicated as we begin to look at some people who have criticized the scientific method. So you need to make sure that you understand things up to this point. Let me know if you have any further problems with it. That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, welcome back once again. Section 3. It's a little difficult. No, easy? Good job, fantastic. So in section 3 actually, you've seen that the questions are, they're simple, and there are certain strategies to solve multiple choice, table completion and flowchart completion. If you like this video, hit on the like button and don't forget to subscribe my channel Asad Yaqub, and I've got 2 more channels, Asad Yaqub Languages and Asad Yaqub Vlogs. Please subscribe those channels as well, and don't forget to comment on this video if there is anything you want to share, if there is anything you want to ask, or if you want to make a request to make a video for you, I'll do that as well. Apart from this, I teach IELTS online. You can join my online IELTS classes as well. Asad Yaqub wishes you all the best. Take care. Allah Hafiz.